Hey guys! Today I'm going to be going over my build for the Dragonbones DLC. Not much has changed since last patch, so most of what I'm running is the same, but I will be going over my setup briefly at the beginning of the video and spend the second part of the video summarizing what changed in the patch and how it affects you as a healer. Starting off with gear, you're going to want to run Spell Power Cure and another set, usually Infallible Aether or Dorvald's Guidance. Other sets include Mending, Sanctuary, or Worm Cult. This patch, my group has replaced Mending and Worm with Dorvald's and IA. This is because Worm is not as beneficial to the group as it used to be, and Mending isn't always necessary. I do want to mention though, that just because this is what my group is running, that doesn't mean it's 100% what you should be running with yours. If you're in a progression group or just going for completion, sets like Mending are still very strong, and I definitely recommend you keep them in the group over Dorvald's. This setup is for score pushing, so don't feel like you're being forced into these sets. You simply have more options now. On my gear, I run infused large pieces with Tri-Stat Enchants. On a Lizard, you can run 2 Tri-Stat Enchants, and on a Breton or an Altmer, you can run 3. This is because the Argonian gets health from its racial passives. The rest of my pieces are Divines with Magicka Enchants. On my jewelry, I run 2 cost reduction glyphs and 1 regen glyph. What you choose to run for your jewelry enchants is highly personal preference, and it's all about your sustain. On a Lizard, the potion passive favors cost reduction because your potions will restore more and you will not have to heavy attack as much. As a general rule of thumb, the more you have to heavy attack, the more valuable regen enchants over cost reduction. You might want to do some testing with your playstyle to figure out what's best for you. I run an Asylum Resto front bar with a powered trait. You can run Precise for more damage and crit heals. You can use a weapon damage enchant for stronger heals and more damage, or an Absorb Magicka enchant for a little more sustain. Just be sure to light attack weave when possible to keep your enchant up. In my build video for last patch I kinda bashed the Asylum Resto, but after testing it a lot throughout Clockwork City I have entirely changed my mind. I made a video about the staff a little bit ago, but the gist of it is that this staff is a powerful tool for sustain and lets you use a ton of orbs, and opens up opportunities for dynamic setups like a flex DPS setup or just running a different Mundus Stone. For my back bar, I will run either a charged, shock, or infused weakening staff. This changes depending on the fight or the trial, but generally charged is better in trash and infused weakening is nice on bosses. If I'm running Dorvald's Guidance, I will run a set staff on my back bar, but with any other set I will run a VMA lightning staff. Moving on to skills. On my front bar, I run Healing Springs, Energy Orbs for the synergy to restore resources to your allies. These also heal a lot, so be sure to use a lot of them. Combat Prayer to buff your group, Breath of Life as a burst heal, and my last spot is a flex spot for either Inner Light, Guard, or Quick Siphon, and sometimes Purge. On my back bar, I run Blazing Spear. This is so I do a bit more damage. Luminous Shards is still a better support option, so run that morph if you feel like it's better for you. I've been playing around with doing more damage on my healer in trials, so that is why I'm using this morph. Ellie Drain to debuff enemies and apply Magicka Steal. Ritual of Retribution, which supplies a Purify synergy, heals, and does damage. The other morph of this is good too. And then your last 2 spots are flex spots for either Channeled Focus, Elemental Blockade, Purge, Guard, Adon's Wrath ability, Harness Magicka, or really any other skills you want to run. For your ultimate, you always want to use Warhorn. This gives a damage buff to your group for its duration. Some people like to run Meteor or Barrier on their front bar to increase their Magicka or regen, but I personally have never bothered with it. Especially with all the bar swap and lag issues there have been in the game for the last while, I have just done without it. But if this is something you like to do, you can 100% do it. So for your attributes and various stat benchmarks, you want to have at least 18k HP with just your food on, so no Ebon or Horn. I found this to be a good number where you're very survivable and still have plenty of resources to work with. This means, depending on your race and CP level, you may need to put more points into HP. On my Lizard I have 6 points into HP. On an Altmer or Breton you will need to have a few more. For food, Clockwork Citrus Fillet is what I run most of the time. Now this food is very expensive, so if you can't afford it, just run Witch Mother's Potent Brew. No one will judge you, and you will not notice a difference. Sometimes I'll swap to blue bi-stat food for certain fights, so I like to carry some of that around with me too. For potions, you want to use Spell Power Pots to buff your heals and damage, and sustain. you want to run the Atronach Mundus to increase your magicka regen. And as far as being a vampire, being a vamp is great because in trials where there is no intense fire damage, you can increase your regen and be a bit more tanky. Trials where I advise against being a high stage vamp are Etherian Archive and Halls of Fabrication. If you're going into these trials, you can just reduce your vamp stage to 1 and you'll be all set. Just to talk about some changes from my build last patch to this patch and the changes in the Dragon Bones patch, the Asylum Resto. Like I said earlier, I have made a separate video talking about the Asylum Resto. But to go over it briefly here, I run this mainly so I can use a ton of orbs. It just makes sustaining in general so easy. I still recommend you run this even if you don't have a perfected one. An imperfect one is super easy to get, you can just get it from normal Asylum, you don't even have to do it on Vet. The difference between imperfect and perfect is very small and it will still give you a huge benefit. If you don't want to run an Asylum staff, your other options are 1, a Master's Resto, or 2, a staff from one of the sets you're running, either SPC or the other one. The changes made to synergies this patch are incredible. The action of activating a synergy has been removed from the global cooldown, so this means you can activate synergies while you're using skills. They also fixed some issues where pets and other things were conflicting with the ability to activate a synergy. Because of this, orbs and your other synergies are much more important now, so be sure to use a lot of them. As far as Dorvald's guidance, the reason why Dorvald's is nice is because it increases the length of your warhorn. With Dorvald's, the major force component of aggressive horn lasts 13 seconds, and the minor toughness lasts 42 seconds. As of right now, this set is extending the duration of not just minor toughness, but the increase to max stats as well. This may not be intended, but I hope to God they do not change it because that would make me and others very sad. You may be asking yourself, where is it appropriate to run Dorvald's? My best answer to this would be to look at the fight and ask, is there something else that could benefit the group more? Would the addition of mending prevent deaths? If that's the case, mending is definitely better to keep for you. There has been a refreshing shift in the healer meta this patch. The addition of Dorvald's and IA being run on healers in more places is a nice change of pace for the meta, which hasn't changed in forever. That is about all I have to go over for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them below. I hope you found this video helpful, and thanks for watching.